Chapter 8. Death, Disease and the Thin Line of Survival. Spring has arrived, and with it comes the usual mix of hope and dread. Hope because the harsh winter is over, food will be more available, and the days are growing longer. Dread because spring also brings disease. The settlement has made it through another winter, but not everyone has survived. An exact count would be morbid, but you estimate that perhaps 8 to 10% of the population didn't make it to spring, mostly the very young, the very old, and the already weak. Their bodies were buried in frozen ground with great difficulty, or in some cases simply stored in outbuildings until the ground thawed enough to dig proper graves. Now as the snow melts and temperatures rise, a new threat emerges. The smell hits you first, a sickly sweet odor of decay and human waste. The winter's accumulated filth is being revealed as the snow melts. The waste pits are overflowing. Dead animals that were covered by snow are now rotting in the spring sun. The general lack of hygiene over the winter has created perfect conditions for disease to spread. Within days of the thaw, people start getting sick. It begins with a child, a girl maybe 5 years old. She develops a fever, then a rash. Within 24 hours she's dead. Her parents are devastated, but also resigned. This is what happens. Children die. It's normal. But then more children get sick. Whatever killed the first girl is spreading. There's no concept of contagion as we understand it. The Vikings believe disease is caused by spirits, curses or divine displeasure, so their responses are religious rather than practical. Offerings are made to the gods. Protective runes are carved. A vulva is called to perform healing magic, but children keep dying. By the end of the week, 6 children are dead. Panic is starting to set in. Parents are terrified. Some families try to isolate their children, keeping them inside, away from others. But in the crowded longhouses where everyone lives in close proximity, isolation is impossible. You recognize what's happening, though you can't explain it in terms they'd understand. This is an epidemic, probably measles or scarlet fever or some other infectious disease, and it's going to run its course through the settlement until it burns itself out or runs out of vulnerable hosts. The vulva performs an elaborate ritual, sacrificing a goat and sprinkling its blood while chanting prayers to Ea, the goddess of healing. Does it work? The epidemic does eventually stop, but only after claiming 12 children and 3 adults. Is it because of the vulva's magic? Or because the disease simply ran its course? There's no way to know, and everyone assumes the ritual worked. The vulva's reputation is enhanced, and she's compensated generously. This is how Vikings understand disease. Not as a biological process, but as a spiritual affliction that requires spiritual solutions. But you've seen enough to understand the real factors. Malnutrition weakens immune systems, close living quarters facilitate transmission, lack of hygiene spreads infection, and there's no effective medical treatment for most diseases. The result is that death, especially of children, is commonplace. Most families expect to lose half or more of their children before they reach adulthood. It's not discussed much because what's the point? It's just how life is. A week after the epidemic subsides, a different medical emergency occurs. A man named Ragnar is working on repairing the roof of a storage building when he falls, landing badly on his left leg. The sound of the bone breaking is audible even from where you're standing 20 feet away. It's a compound fracture, the bone protruding through the skin, blood pouring from the wound. Ragnar is screaming. People rush to help, but there's confusion about what to do. The settlement has no trained physician, no surgeon. Medical care is a mix of folk remedies, practical experience and hope. An older woman named Sigrid, who has a reputation for healing, takes charge. She's not a vulva, not a religious healer, just someone who's seen a lot of injuries over her 60 years and has learnt a few things. She examines the leg, her face grim. "The bone must be set," she announces. And quickly, before the swelling gets worse, Ragnar is given a wooden stick to bite down on and several horns of mead to drink. It's the only anesthetic available. Then, while multiple men hold him down, Sigrid manipulates the bone back into place. His screams are horrific. You can hear them across the settlement. Animals scatter in terror at the sound, but Sigrid works efficiently, pulling the leg straight, pushing the bone back through the skin, ignoring Ragnar's agony. Once the bone is set, she splints it with wooden planks bound tightly with leather strips. Then she packs the wound with a poultice made from herbs, honey, and spider webs, which she believes will prevent evil spirits from entering the wound. Will it work? The honey actually has antibacterial properties, though Sigrid doesn't know why. The herbs might help, or they might do nothing. The spider webs are probably useless, possibly harmful. If the wound stays clean and the bone heals straight, he'll walk again, Sigrid says. But if the evil enters the wound, she doesn't finish the sentence. Everyone knows what happens then. Over the next few days you watch Ragnar's condition closely. At first he seems to be doing well. The pain lessens, he's able to sleep, the wound looks relatively clean. Then, on the 5th day, things change. The skin around the wound becomes red and swollen. The wound itself starts oozing a yellowish fluid. Ragnar develops a fever. Infection has set in. Sigrid tries everything in her repertoire. She washes the wound with boiled water and vinegar. She applies new poultices. She performs chants and draws protective runes on Ragnar's chest. But the infection spreads. The leg swells grotesquely. Red streaks begin to crawl up from the wound toward his body. The smell becomes awful, the distinctive odor of necrotic tissue. By day 8, Ragnar is delirious with fever. The leg is clearly dying, the tissue turning black in places. The jarl is consulted. A decision must be made. The leg must come off, or Ragnar will die. There's no anesthesia beyond mead, and possibly some herbal preparations that might dull the pain slightly. There are no sterile instruments, no antibiotics, no blood transfusions if he bleeds too much. But it's his only chance. Ragnar, in a brief moment of lucidity, is told what must happen. He agrees. What choice does he have? The amputation takes place in the longhouse, with most of the settlement watching. It's not gruesome entertainment exactly, but people want to witness. It's a significant event, and besides, everyone might learn something useful for when they face similar situations. Ragnar is given enough mead to almost render him unconscious. He's held down by 4 strong men. A fire is built up hot, and an axe is heated until it glows red. Sigrid, who will perform the amputation, ties a leather cord tightly around Ragnar's thigh, high above the infected area, to slow the bleeding. Then she picks up a saw, an actual woodworking saw, the only tool available for the job. What follows is brutal. She saws through the leg just below the knee, working as quickly as she can while Ragnar screams and thrashes despite the men holding him. Blood pools on the floor. The sound of the saw cutting through bone is nauseating. When the leg finally comes free, Sigrid discards it like garbage. Then she takes the red-hot axe and presses it against the stump, cauterizing the wound. The smell of burning flesh fills the longhouse. Ragnar has passed out from the pain, which is a mercy. His leg is now a charred, blackened stump. He'll either live or die, Sigrid says matter-of-factly. The next 3 days will tell. Ragnar survives. Barely. The cauterization works, the bleeding stops, and somehow, miraculously, the stump doesn't become infected. Within a week he's conscious and able to take food, though he's never the same. He's now a cripple, unable to raid, unable to do most physical labor. His value to the community has plummeted. He'll survive on charity and whatever light work he can manage, but his life as a warrior is over. He's only 32 years old. This is Viking medicine. Brutal, pragmatic, with success rates that are terrifyingly low. Most serious injuries or illnesses are fatal. Even minor wounds can become infected and kill you. Childbirth is extraordinarily dangerous for both mother and child. The average life expectancy is perhaps 35 to 40 years, though that average is brought down by high infant mortality. If you survive to adulthood, you might live into your 50s or even 60s, but you'll age much faster than modern people. By 30, most Vikings look 50. By 40, they look ancient. Years of hard labor, poor nutrition, constant exposure to the elements, injuries and disease all take their toll. You meet a man who's considered old at 47. His back is bent from years of heavy work. His teeth are mostly gone. His hands are gnarled with arthritis. He moves slowly, painfully, every step an effort. "How much longer do you think you have?" someone asks him casually one day. He shrugs. "A year, maybe 2. When I can't work anymore, I'll go into the mountains. No point in being a burden." He says this without self-pity. It's just reality. When you're too old or too broken to contribute, you remove yourself from the community. It's considered honorable. A few weeks later, he does exactly that. He says his farewells, walks into the wilderness, and is never seen again. No one goes looking for him. This is what he wanted. What's expected? This attitude toward death pervades Viking culture. Death isn't something to be feared or avoided at all costs. It's inevitable. And how you die matters more than when. You witness this when a ship fails to return from a fishing trip. It's been too many days. The weather has been calm. They should have been back. A search party goes out and finds wreckage along the coast. The ship hit rocks, probably at night. All 6 men aboard drowned. Their bodies wash ashore over the next few days. When they're recovered, people examine them for signs of how they died. One man, they determine, went down fighting. He's still gripping a piece of timber he was trying to use to stay afloat. This is good. He died struggling, trying to survive. Another apparently drowned quickly, his lungs full of water. No signs of struggle. This is less honorable but acceptable. But one of the bodies shows that the man tried to save himself by abandoning his companions, swimming away while they called for help. This is known because survivors from a passing ship witnessed it. His body is buried without ceremony, his name spoken with contempt. He died a coward. This is the Viking view of death. It's not the dying that matters, it's how you face it. Courage, even in futile situations, is everything. This philosophy is put to the test. When a hunting party encounters a bear, bears in medieval Scandinavia are massive, dangerous predators. Running into one is potentially fatal, and this particular bear is aggressive, possibly protecting cubs. The hunting party includes 6 men. The smart move would be to slowly back away, avoid confrontation, but that's not the Viking way. Instead, they decide to fight it. Not because they need to, not because the bear is threatening the settlement, but because killing a bear is glorious. It's a test of courage and skill. The fight is brief and brutal. The bear mauls 2 men before it's finally killed with spears and axes. Both mauled men die within hours. Their injuries too severe to survive, but their deaths are celebrated. They died fighting a bear. Their courage will be sung about. Their names will be remembered. This is a good death, an honorable death. Never mind that it was completely unnecessary. Never mind that they had families who needed them. They died bravely, and that's what matters. You're struggling to understand this mindset, this embrace of violent death as desirable. But the more you see, the more it makes a twisted kind of sense. In a world where life is brutal, short, and full of suffering, maybe the attraction of a quick, glorious death makes sense. Better to die young in battle, your reputation intact, than to live long enough to become decrepit, useless, a burden. Better to die doing something that will be remembered, than to fade away forgotten. This is why Vikings seek out danger. Why they take outrageous risks. Why they'd rather fight than retreat. They're not stupid or suicidal. They're operating under a completely different set of values, where glory and reputation matter more than longevity. But the cost of this value system is visible everywhere. The settlement is full of people with missing limbs, disfiguring scars, chronic injuries that never healed properly. Men in their 20s who move like they're in their 60s because their bodies have been broken by violence. And then there are the psychological casualties. You've already seen how warriors struggle with what we'd call PTSD. But there are other forms of mental illness that the Vikings have no framework for understanding. A woman named Thorhild starts acting strangely. She talks to people who aren't there. She claims spirits are visiting her, telling her things. At first, people think maybe she's becoming a vulva, a seeress with spiritual gifts. But her behavior becomes more erratic. She stops caring for herself. She wanders naked outside in the cold. She becomes violent, attacking people for no reason. Finally, she's restrained and isolated in a small building away from others. She's given food and water, but otherwise left alone. There's no treatment for whatever is wrong with her. The closest thing to a diagnosis is that she's been possessed by evil spirits or cursed by enemies. Eventually, she stops eating. She dies alone in that little building, probably from dehydration or starvation, her mind broken by an illness no one understood. Her death is seen as a mercy. Whatever had taken hold of her is now released. She's at peace. This is how Vikings deal with mental illness. Isolation, neglect, and eventual death. There's no concept of psychology, no treatment, no compassion for something they can't see or understand. Physical disability is somewhat better tolerated, but only if you can still contribute. Ragnar, with his amputated leg, carves wooden items and helps with tasks that can be done sitting down. He's allowed to live because he's still useful, but a man who loses his sight in an accident is another story. He can't work, can't fight, can't contribute meaningfully. He becomes a burden on his family. Within a few months, he disappears. No one asks what happened to him, but everyone knows. He was taken into the forest and left there, an unspoken agreement between him and his family that this was better for everyone. This utilitarian approach to human life is shocking, but it's born of necessity. A community living on the edge of survival can't afford to support people who can't contribute. It's harsh, but it's how they've survived for generations. As summer progresses, you witness another mass death event, dysentery. It starts when someone contaminates the main water source, probably by washing something that should never have been washed near where people draw drinking water. Within days, people are falling ill with violent diarrhea and vomiting. Dehydration kills quickly, especially children and the elderly. The settlement watches helplessly as people die, sometimes within 24 hours of showing symptoms. Theories abound about the cause. Some blame the landvatir, land spirits who are angry about some offense. Others think it's a curse from enemies. A few suggest contaminated food. No one makes the connection to the water source until you, drawing on knowledge that shouldn't exist in this time, suggest boiling all water before drinking it. People are skeptical. Why would heating water help? But they're desperate enough to try anything. Those who follow the advice and boil their water largely avoid getting sick. Those who don't continue to fall ill. Eventually someone realizes that maybe there's something in the water, though they conceptualize it as evil spirits or bad vapors rather than bacteria. The epidemic burns through the settlement, killing about 15 people before it subsides. The water source is abandoned, and a new one is found upstream. Your suggestion to boil water has earned you a reputation for wisdom, though you know it's just basic hygiene knowledge that won't be common for centuries. The constant proximity to death changes how people think and behave. They're both fatalistic and desperate. Fatalistic in that they accept death as inevitable and imminent. Any day might be your last, so you don't make long-term plans. You don't save for retirement because you probably won't have one. You live for today because tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but also desperate to leave something behind, some mark that proves you existed. This is why reputation is so important, why being remembered in stories and songs matters so much. If your name lives on, you've achieved a kind of immortality. This desperation for legacy drives much of Viking behavior. The raids, the violence, the risk-taking, it's all about being remembered. An old warrior on his deathbed spends his final hours reciting his accomplishments to anyone who will listen. The battles he fought, the enemies he killed, the wealth he won. He needs someone to remember, to pass his story on. When he finally dies, his funeral is elaborate. He's buried in a boat with his weapons and grave goods, the ceremony attended by hundreds. His name will be spoken for years, remembered, honored. This is what Vikings strive for. Not a long life, but a remembered one. As autumn approaches, the settlement takes stock of who survived the year. The population is slightly smaller than it was at the start of spring. The epidemic, the accidents, the violence, all have taken their toll, but there have been births too. Some children survived infancy. A few new thralls were acquired. Life continues, the cycle repeating. You realize that living in the Viking Age means living with death as a constant companion. It's not hidden away in hospitals and funeral homes like in modern times. It's right there, visible, unavoidable. Children die in front of you. Warriors bleed out from wounds. Old people simply stop waking up one morning. Bodies are prepared for burial in common spaces. Funerals are community events. Death isn't abstract or distant, it's immediate and personal. And maybe that's why Vikings seem so fearless, so willing to take outrageous risks. When death is always present, when you've seen it so many times, maybe it loses some of its terror. Or maybe they're just better at hiding their fear than we give them credit for. As winter approaches again, the cycle continues. People prepare for another season of cold, darkness, and deprivation. Some won't survive. Everyone knows this. But they prepare anyway, because what else can you do? Survival in the Viking Age isn't about thriving. It's about enduring. Making it through one more winter, one more raid, one more epidemic, one more day. And if you're lucky enough, when death finally comes, it comes quickly and gloriously, giving you a story worth telling. This is life in the Viking Age. Brutal, short, and precious because it's so fragile.